Today, we are talking about something that a lot of female athletes may suffer from, and some don't even know that it is the aspect that is really holding them back. It is also, weirdly enough, not always something that you have to seek treatment for just because we lose blood every month. We're talking about iron deficiencies and how it relates to running. And welcome back to the She Runs Strong podcast, powered by Coach Parry with Shona and Nicky. As always, welcome back to my friend and colleague Nicky. How are you doing? I know this is something that you and I have both struggled with. More recently for you than me.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you. So no, it's good to be back, and this is definitely a subject close to my heart. Very recently, I've had a low iron deficiency diagnosis, so I'm really good to chat about this today and excited to get going. I just think it's a really key topic that we could deal with more, and one that we don't talk about as much. So it's a really good one to address here. So yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Nicky. Yeah, and I also have had two separate sort of instances of not iron deficiency, but low iron, perhaps, that's been reported, and through different symptoms. And we're going to dive into one that for what that has meant for both of us and how we've treated those, but also what it means for you as a female runner. And I think it's key here just to mention, though, that just because you may still have your period or your menstrual cycle, and just because you bleed every month, it doesn't mean that you are iron deficient. But also equally, just because perhaps you are postmenopause and you no longer bleed doesn't mean that you're at any less risk of iron deficiency. So that's quite a key point. And then just a very, very big disclaimer before we get started here is that it's really dangerous to diagnose yourself with iron deficiency. Okay, so it's not something that you should do on your own. It is something you should be consulting your doctor about, and you should be getting a set of bloods done to check these levels. Particularly if you take iron supplementation that isn't indicated, you can get very toxic levels of iron in your blood. So please make sure that you get a blood work done and don't diagnose this on your own. And then to continue to have follow-ups as you go along. So
yeah, good call there. Absolutely. Okay, well, let's dive in then. So Shona, why is iron important for runners? Why is iron and hemoglobin important for runners physiologically?
I mean, we'll talk about it, and just how we're saying, okay, iron deficiencies and iron, but we have to realize that that's important, for obviously human physiological function, but it's really important for runners. Okay, so maybe just to explain hemoglobin first up. So hemoglobin is essentially the protein that physically binds to oxygen, and it transports oxygen around the muscles and the cells. Okay, and so more hemoglobin means more or better oxygen utilization. But the body can only really produce more hemoglobin if there's enough iron that is stored in the bone marrow. And so very often we can pick up that there's a low hemoglobin measure by just picking up that there's low iron, right? And that's very often why we test iron first. Well, it is really why we test iron first, because you're having other signs and symptoms, and then we test the other different elements of iron, so like hematocrit and hemoglobin and red blood cell counts and so on. But really within the research, it's shown over and over and over again that a high hemoglobin count is a high correlation to good performance, right? And David Roche, who's a very good coach and athlete, who we know smashed that Leadville world record last year, he wrote an article about this, and just over and over again just shows how high hemoglobin levels and a high VO2 max are very well correlated. So it's partly the reason, well, it's not partly, it's exactly the reason why EPO is a banned substance, right? Because what that does is it increases your hemoglobin mass and the number of hemoglobin that you have, and that improves your performance by around 6% on something as short as a 3K time trial. So of course, we're not advocating for the use of a banned substance here. Please know that that's not what we're saying. But I just want to give you the understanding of how important hemoglobin and iron levels are for your running performance. Low hemoglobin will equal low running performance. It's that black and white. So it's really, really important. And of course, we're not advocating for banned substances, but it just shows you why and how effective it can be. And of course, as we go through the rest of this podcast, just really showing you and explaining, different signs and symptoms and how to treat it and get better without using EPO as a banned substance. But Yeah. Nicky, I guess sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so but basically getting your oxygen to your muscles then, isn't it?
There we go.
So yeah, I mean, you're a bit up the creek if you can't get your oxygen to feed your muscles. So iron's definitely going to be an important one there. So yeah, no, this is really interesting. Yeah.
No, that's exactly it. And the faster we can get that oxygen to your muscles, the better the utilization will be, the better an athlete or runner you are. And so if you have more, think of it like, I guess, workers in a factory. If you've got 1,000 workers carrying that oxygen to where it needs to go versus 500 workers, you're going to be able to get more oxygen to the muscles. So, so that's exactly in layman's terms. Thank you for explaining my science into what that really means. But yeah, let's dive into, I guess, how do you know if you are iron deficient? So perhaps, maybe from your perspective, what were some of the symptoms that you experienced that led you to investigating this further?
Yeah, no, this is an interesting one. So I have always been a little bit anemic through my younger years and my 40s and stuff. But more recently, I was sick actually. I just had the regular cold that the rest of the family had, and I was just feeling really poorly. And I just wasn't recovering. They had all recovered, and I just thought, oh, I'm tired. I'd gone away. I'd missed I'd had some disrupted sleep, and I thought I was tired from that. But then I found myself kind of getting more deeper into a wee hole of feeling more tired, and I'd have a nap. I'd wake up, and then I just want to have a nap again. And I went to the doctors, and they asked me about symptoms, and I just said, it's just an overwhelming fatigue and tiredness. I'm just really, really tired all the time. And they did a test, and I wasn't expecting this actually when I came, because I don't have periods nowadays. And I was always told when I was younger that once my periods stopped, my low iron levels, I mean, I was sort of borderline low as opposed to significantly low, would be fine. And they would probably recover. So I thought that would be one of the positives of being postmenopausal, would be my iron levels would be okay. And anyway, so the doctor told me that I was significantly anemic. I needed to take iron pills, and I have been doing that now for a wee while. And I almost 2-3 weeks later ran a park run, when I've been running park runs before, and feel significantly better. So yes, so that's my story. So I had been a bit shocked with that, and it wasn't something that I had considered. And now we had been chatting about this before the podcast, before we started this. And you were pointing out to me that I have been quite sick over the last year or so, and I just haven't recovered. And I've really struggled to get to the start line of marathons because I haven't been able to recover from the illnesses. And I think that is one of the symptoms as well of having low iron, is that you just get a little bit more sick, you don't recover as quickly, and then you're starting from scratch again. So that's generally my story with it. How about yourself?
That's actually, and like I say, with you, almost as your training was ramping up, it's like that illness hit again, and it's interesting because for me it was just a general lack of performance. Like my training just was blur, it never felt good. Easy runs were not easy, even though I was slowing down. Interval sessions were really hard. So I played around with my nutrition a lot because I generally don't eat particularly well. So I really focused on that, and still the same things were happening. Training was poor all the time, and I was exhausted all the time. But Nicky, exhausted to the point of would wake up in the morning a little bit tired, would feel okay mid-morning, and by 2:00 in the afternoon, I felt like I needed a nap. I often joke when I've spoken about this before, it felt like I was living in Spain again and I had to be forced to have a siesta in the afternoon, but I literally would put my head down and I'd be out for an hour and I would struggle to wake up after that, and so it's just that debilitating fatigue almost, which I found, so it was those two key factors. And I'll mention Lindsay, our head coach here at Coach Parry, Lindsay Parry, who's the name on the door essentially, and he struggled a lot with iron deficiency as well. And I'm just going to tell a little bit of his story through this as well, because I think there's relevance, even though we are focused on females, I still think there's just relevance across the board, is that he also really struggled with, he had a very poor Boston Marathon when he ran Boston, but he struggled with illness, much like you. But he always said that through that race, he's never struggled cardiovascularly. It's always been his legs that have let him down. But he said this was the first time that he felt like he was not literally getting enough oxygen. He said it just felt like that. And so an interesting sort of
I can relate to that, because I was running some park runs and I just felt like I couldn't push or breathe or anything. Whereas more recently I've been running park runs and I felt I could push on a little bit. And it definitely, I feel like I noticed the differences from just getting some supplements in from that. I think it's a really interesting story, and it is interesting that Lindsay had it as well, and he was able to pick up on that because he's so in tune with his body. But a lot of folks aren't in tune with their body, and how do we know what to look for? How do we? I mean, I was really, really tired. I went to the doctors, but I honestly didn't expect it to be iron as well. Did you think it was iron when you were sort of napping a lot?
I did when it was last year when I was going through it. I did, because I've had a similar thing. It was in 2019 when I was prescribed iron supplementation. So for me, I knew. But the first time I went through it, I just went to a very good sports physician, and she did a full blood work. And she said, she was like, Shona, if your nutrition's okay, and if you're feeling this tired and your performance is down, let's do a blood work just to ensure. So, so these symptoms, I think, so that's twofold. I think listening to the symptoms that the three of us have gone through, yourself, Lindsay, and I think are all very key symptoms. So if you're struggling with those, that's key. Disturbed sleep is also another symptom. I know Lindsay struggled with sleep disturbances quite a lot. And then obviously, lack of sleep, which is weird because you're so tired,
I know.
So interesting. So those two things. So look at those symptoms, go and speak to a physician who you trust, who's preferably a sports physician who understands menopause as well. Because, all of these symptoms I'm mentioning are menopausal symptoms, right? Sleep disturbances, lack of sleep or insomnia, debilitating fatigue, poor performance. Those are all menopause symptoms. And I think so often we're guided or pushed to power through because of menopause, when in actual fact there could be something underlying. So I always think it's worthwhile to go to the physician and tell them this and ask and request and say, is a set of bloods, is there reasoning for us to do a set of bloods, so that they could literally figure it out.
Yeah. And I think, you've nailed all those, but in terms of being a runner, I think it's probably even just that bit more important to keep an eye on your iron levels. And that was something I had dropped the ball on, because having said, I was always slightly on the borderline anyway, and I don't know why I suddenly stopped. And I think I just thought, oh, well, look, I'm postmenopausal. I don't need to supplement nowadays. It'll be absolutely fine. And yet I hadn't really, and like you say, you just think they're part of maybe the symptoms of that time of life or the busy life and stuff. So it's
busy
really
life. Yep. Sorry to interrupt you there. I apologize. But that's, I think, was Lindsay's concern, is that he was just really busy, running around after the kids, different sporting events, running around at the business, doing his own training for Boston. So he thinks he should be tired, but there is an actual underlying thing. And, you and I, Nicky, have spoken about, is it worthwhile to actually have a set of bloods or a physical or something once a year, and I think there is a little bit of merit in that,
I agree. And also I think the tiredness is different as well, because running around after kids, you can be sort of nicely tired. But for me, the fatigue was actually a sort of really kind of overwhelming. I'd wake up in the morning and I just couldn't get myself going. And even when I woke up from a nap, I couldn't kind of come round from the nap. I was just feeling overwhelmingly tired. And if I went for a run with some friends, I was just like, I can't do this. Whereas normally I would have comfortably been able to run with them, So that, I think, recognizing and dialing into actually how severe is your fatigue. Is it just a day-to-day fatigue where you're feeling a bit like, oh, there's an awful lot on? Or is it really actually overwhelmingly kind of chronically there.
And Nicky, I love that. That is spot on. I absolutely love that because it's, so is it more intense as a symptom, but is it also linked to other symptoms, right? So, like for me anyways, last year when this was diagnosed, and I do feel like this, I've gone off the supplementation again, and, I need to get that rechecked and monitored. But aside from that, sorry, I'm veering off here, but looking at those symptoms, for me, it was the fatigue, the debilitating fatigue. So it wasn't just like I was tired. And it was the poor performance, those two things. So my training was bad and I was really, really tired. And interestingly enough, I had, so like if you pull your eyelid down and looking in the white of your eye at the bottom here, that should be slightly pink, right? It shouldn't be white. And that's it's a very flippant indication of anemia, but it is just something that I looked at as well. And when I started feeling this last year, it was also just after my 40th birthday celebration. So I thought that it was just my fatigue was linked to that I'd perhaps partied a bit too hard, and now I'm 40 and I don't recover as well from these parties. But that carried on for about 3 or 4 weeks. This fatigue, and so that is why I think I think your point is just pertinent there. It's about looking at the severity or the intensity of that symptom, and if it's linked with other symptoms, and then to go and request a good investigation with your physician, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is, when you go and you maybe run a race as well, or you do some training and you're finding it, like for me, when I was sort of not being able to run with my friends, I was sort of thinking, well, I need to just work harder and do more and this sort of stuff. And you don't realize that actually look a little bit more internally and see it's not, I wasn't working hard and trying. It was just that I wasn't, there was something limiting me, and that recognizing that limiting factor, I think, is really quite tough.
Yeah.
So,
I think, sorry, Nicky, I think on these, the thing with the bloods, if you go and get a set of bloods done, it's black and white, right? It's straight off the bat. And we can dive into those numbers in a little bit, and we don't, but this is it. This is black and white. There's no question of there's an iron issue or there isn't, whereas, so yes, I do think that there's merit in going for these tests once a year, checking it out. And if you do have a deficiency, obviously to keep monitoring that. But again, to look at other factors. So are you tired because of your diet and you're not getting enough fuel, or you're not getting enough sleep, or you're overtraining, so I would look at those factors first. Let's tick the boxes there. No, I'm not overtraining. Yes, I'm recovering enough. Yes, my diet is getting all the fuel it needs for my training. I'm still feeling this way. Let's investigate further. That would almost be the process I would recommend people follow in their heads to go about it.
Yeah. And so I guess then it's kind of like just going to the doctor and really sort of pushing forwards that, you really need some tests, because some doctors don't necessarily pay attention. Or even when you do get the test results back, what is normal for us? What is normal for a runner? What's normal for an athlete? What's normal for a normal person? Did you have that chat with the doctor? How did it work for you?
Exactly that. And I'm laughing because at first I had to really advocate that I wanted the bloods done. And this is the physician who 3 or 4 years before had actually diagnosed not iron deficiency, but a low iron level, and had prescribed some iron supplementation. And then when I went back with the same symptoms, did the bloods, I had to really advocate. So I said, I really want to have the bloods done. And she was like, no, I don't think there's reason to do them. And I was like, but so I really had to advocate for myself in that way. And she did eventually do them, got the results back. And she said, no, I don't think you need to get iron supplementation. And it's interesting because, and I'll go through some of the numbers. Lindsay, it was at the same time that Lindsay was struggling, or just after Lindsay was struggling with his iron depletion or low iron levels. And within and I just want to pull those numbers up. So Lindsay's numbers were very similar to mine: hemoglobin, red blood cell count, and hematocrit. Hematocrit is just really the thickening or the density of your blood. But the iron, which is really the main thing, which is responsible for manufacturing your hemoglobin, Lindsay and I both had a level of 11.3. Now, The normal range, and again, guys, this is very key that this is individual. Okay, so please, don't think that you have to be in the same sort of level or anything. But the normal range, well, anyways, the ranges that we have in South Africa, and this is from our physicians here, is that the range of iron should be between 9 and 30. Mine was 11.3. Lindsay's was 11.3, and Lindsay's physician said, oh my gosh, you have very low iron for someone who does endurance running. We need to put you on iron supplementation. Whereas my physician said, no, your iron levels are fine.
You were an endurance athlete too.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. She knows I'm a runner, so it's, so yes, they're within the normal ranges. And of course, the physicians are trying to be cautious because iron supplementation at high levels is toxic. It's bad for you. But I do think that, and again, I don't want to question the physicians, but I think we need to have another look at what are normal levels for endurance athletes. And I think whoever you go see, if that is the question you get back, you must mention that you're a runner, and these weren't normal levels essentially for. It was just interesting for me that one physician said that's low and the other physician said that's fine, and we're both runners. So
that is interesting because there is as runners, the hitting, the impact on the ground, we do cause our, what's the name for that again?
Oh gosh, yeah, I know exactly what you're trying to say. No, that also left me. Like you break down, like you're breaking down.
So because of the impact of hitting the ground, we are breaking down our own red blood cells and our iron. Therefore, if we're kind of low with the iron, it's going to compound a little bit. So we're not going to help ourselves. So this is what my doctor had said when I had gone a few weeks ago. Longer than that ago, but I had said, oh, look, I'm training quite hard. I want to do this race. And he'd said, actually, I'd prefer if you didn't run for a couple of weeks to let everything settle down and to build your iron back up again. And I have said that to athletes as well, actually. I've had one athlete where I've said, right, your iron's so low, I'd actually like you not to run for 2 weeks and just let things build back up again. Otherwise, you're going to go, because she was quite she ran a lot. And so the impact, it was just like, you're just not going to help yourself by running if your iron is that low. So I think that's an interesting thing as well, just to sort of, we need that sort of buffer zone. We need to be up higher into it. So it's interesting that your doctor didn't.
Exactly. Sorry, Nicky. Yeah, exactly. And I chatted to Lindsay about it, and Lindsay knows her well as well, just in the environment that we were working in. And we had a discussion about it, around how endurance athletes should be, we want them on the higher end of that scale. Of course, we don't want you outside of the normal range, because again, that's dangerous. But if there's a range, you should be at the higher end of that range, because like you're saying, in terms of that's that breakdown of the hemoglobin or the red blood cells, but also because we utilize much more oxygen when we're running, so we need more hemoglobin naturally. Yes. It was very surprising for us. And so I do think, again, I think what I want out of this conversation is that people become advocates for themselves. Again, I knew what I was feeling. Like, I knew that I wasn't feeling well. I knew that I was tired, and I knew that my training wasn't going well. So just trying to find a way through that. And I know you've also struggled a little bit with that. But now, you're feeling much better. So maybe let's dive into, how we treat this, right? So if you want to recover from sessions faster, not feel tired all the time, run pain and injury-free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join me in my upcoming training specifically for female runners over the age of 45. In it, I'll share with you my simple 5-step framework that'll transform your running. Simply scan the QR code on screen now, or click on the link in the description to save your seats in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, lots of ways, isn't there? I was given the hard-hitting kind of iron pills, which they seem to do a good job, because I definitely felt a difference after a few weeks. But I I had quite a bad tummy for a couple of weeks, and
Yes, yes, yes.
a few other issues which weren't pleasant, which we're going to go through
Yeah,
here as well. So
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
so
I mean, mine was also iron supplementation, as was Lindsay's, I know as well. And again, guys, please, this is in conjunction with
yeah,
your physician. So it's not just a matter of I'm feeling tired and fatigued, and I want to go and get some iron supplementation over the counter at the chemist or the pharmacy. Please don't do that. Okay, that is very dangerous. So, but we're just giving our experiences. Mine was iron supplementation, but in conjunction with constant monitoring. So I had to go back for another set of bloods in, I think it was I think Lindsay's was 3 months and mine was 6 months. So that you're seeing how that's the changes of that supplementation is working. Maybe just other things to look at is or to consider. I mean, this wasn't for me, or it was actually because my diet isn't amazing. Is including things like leafy greens, obviously spinaches, legumes in your diet is
mhm,
very, very good. But of course, if you do have a deficiency, you often need supplementation over and above that. And the iron absorption is key, right? So you might be someone who struggles to absorb this exogenous source, this outside source of iron that we're now taking in as a supplement. And that's got a lot to do with your gut microbiomes. And so speak to your physician about that to make sure that this extra iron you're now taking is actually getting absorbed. Which is very, very key. So yeah,
yeah.
from a treatment perspective, this is not a matter of just diagnosing and treating yourself. It's working in consultation with your physician very, very closely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, Nicky, I mean, some other things just to consider with this, and I know you mentioned this to me as well, is that using vitamin C with your iron. So when you take your iron in the morning or whenever, take it with some vitamin C because that'll help absorption. And then to not take it with calcium because interestingly enough, that doesn't help the
Oh,
absorption. So don't have it with your morning cappuccino.
that's what I was, yeah, morning coffee, and oh, that's killer to kind of give up for a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
but nice orange juice or something with that is good, certainly.
Excellent idea. I didn't even think of that. I was taking it with vitamin C. That's even better. So yeah, brilliant.
Have some orange
Um,
juice, yep.
Yep, that's brilliant. Yeah,
I think
and then Nikki, sorry, you mentioned the side effects. Sorry, did you want
well,
to?
just one other sort of treatment. So for myself, what I did was I took the iron supplementation, but I also the doctor did recommend that I didn't run for a couple of weeks, but I'm not very good at doing that. But I did cut it down to 50%. So
Okay.
I think if you just take your training back a little bit, maybe it depends how severe and what range you're on. But if you are looking, because what we're looking to is boost your iron up and then we're looking to maintain it. So at this particular point, when you're initially treating it and you do have some low iron, you want to get it back up to a level. And so to do everything you can to help it get up to that level. So perhaps reducing your training a little bit might be a good thing as well, as well as your supplementation
Would
too.
you
So
would you suggest? And I'm just thinking because of that contact that you're speaking about, would you then suggest that that is um, running specifically, or would you could you substitute cross training? Would you then suggest that
yeah.
you
So
do
I had
cycling
thought
again?
I would get back on the bike and stuff, but actually I was still feeling really, really tired.
Yeah. Yes.
So it was nice to know why I was feeling really, really tired. But I do like my running, so I didn't want to like just go back to zero,
Mm.
because I had been sick and I wanted to do a little bit. So I just promised myself that I could do 20 to 30 minutes every second day and just run that through for a couple of weeks. And along with the supplementation and my orange juice in the morning, it just all kind of worked quite nicely. And I think that's probably because what you're looking for is the most rapid way to bring it up to get to a nice level, and then maintaining that level is a different issue
Yes.
in itself. But you're just looking for that rapid level to bring it back up to where
Brilliant.
it should be, and so you're feeling better. And honestly, I felt like it was just a light switch at one particular day. I kind of got up and thought, "Do you know what? I feel so much better today." I haven't really necessarily upped my running since then, I have to say, but um, it just feels that much better. So I think, but yeah, if we talk about side effects, I mean, I did have a few side effects in the first week. I think did you say you had some or not? It was,
No, so interestingly, and let me give you mine quickly before, because you mentioned gastric effects, and I didn't have things like constipation, but I tend to have a niggly gastrointestinal issue. Anyways, I had a surgery on my large intestine when I was 16, and things have never really been great since. So there's a lot of information for our listeners. Sorry, guys, but really, I didn't then see any difference with taking the iron supplementation, but I do know I've had athletes who are on it, and you mentioned around some different gastric effects, right?
Well, it was quite an interesting, because I could feel it almost in my tummy straight away, and it was more actually. I never had issues particularly, but I'd be out running and I'd have to jump behind a tree, and I was like, oh goodness me. So there was a few of those sort of issues, and then what I did was I just took it every second day instead. And I think just reducing the loading, I mean, I suppose you could take half a pill each day, but I just opted for every second day. And that just made things a little bit easier. And I noticed a difference. So I think sometimes you tolerate different dosages as well. So, and because you've maybe not had so much, then suddenly popping it all in is quite hard. So, so I definitely felt it. I definitely was aware that I was taking iron supplements. And I do feel it was quite hard on my system. So that is something. And I guess eating your vegetables and that sort of stuff will help things flow a little bit more.
Yeah. And again, speaking to your physician, and working that out with them, right? Like like for you to have taken that every second day, that's helpful. Those are, I didn't struggle with that. So but those are proper concerns especially for runners.
A lot of my friends who did, certainly when I was taking iron pills through pregnancies, because I was anemic through my pregnancies, and a lot of my friends also took iron pills, and we all said the same thing, that it was quite hard work on our systems. So and that's not often that comfortable if you're a runner and stuff as well. So, and I think that's it. When you get into the sort of, when you've got your iron up, but then you're into a kind of iron, if you like, maintenance phase, to figure out how to, because for me, I had always supplemented. Then I thought my periods have gone, so I don't need to supplement. Now I think, I mean, I'm going to the consultant, chatting through various options and stuff, so I'm not quite sure what I'll do, but I will need to think about that sort of maintenance and whether I need a light supplementation as I go forward and how I monitor that. So I think that's also another interesting thing as well.
Absolutely. And maybe if that can be maintained with just with normal diet, so that, if once you up to a certain point, if you can then maintain with normal
diet. But I
diet.
obviously wasn't before.
But yes, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe you could, So, I mean, I know, again, my diet is definitely one of my weaknesses. I definitely do need a bit more iron in my general diet. So, I mean, when I got through that last lot of iron deficiency, or low iron levels rather, a lot more baby spinach. I would then have a smoothie in the morning that was baby spinach, banana.
I mean, you have to eat a lot of spinach, I believe.
No, exactly. But again, I was having no spinach or no iron in my diet. So again, just adding in little bits. But yes, it is a key thing that I think your point is key, is just that the dosage that you're on now won't be the dosage forever, because you're going to monitor that and see how that changes in your iron levels, and you're going to then take it from there. So that is a very key point to have to work with your physician for that. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Is there any other way that we can bring iron up at all? Or
that's legal, definitely. I mean, so we spoke around EPO, and again, we just to make a clear point here, that at Coach Parry, we are very, very, very much against doping and any sort of form of that. But there are two sort of legal ways that people have done this over the years. And the first one is altitude training, right? So, going and training at a high altitude and then coming back down, because when we train at that high altitude, your body adapts to being at a place where there's less oxygen. So the body creates more hemoglobin naturally. Okay, so that's really how that works. But it does take 7 to 10 days for your body to acclimatize before we can even start seeing those effects. So generally, the elite athletes will often go for 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks for a high altitude training camp. But it's very key here, guys, as well, to note that there are responders and non-responders to altitude training. So some people might go to altitude and train, and your body doesn't respond that way. And as recreational runners, I don't think we all have the luxury of missioning out into the mountains for 3 weeks to go and train. I wish we did. That would be amazing. Yeah, exactly.
Does it last for a wee while?
Yeah, it does. I mean, the effects are not months on end, but yeah, probably I'd say 2 to 4 weeks. So that's what you almost want to do. It's closer to your events. Maybe I stand to be corrected. As far as I know, it's not like 6 months, but you want to do it sort of close enough to your events, but not too close to your event, because obviously when you're training at high altitude, it affects your recovery, right? So you don't want to be doing everything at a high altitude. And again, as recreational guys, if you don't know if you're a responder or non-responder, to take leave off work, to go into the mountains, to train hard in the mountains, and then be close to your events, it is a little bit risky. So, but yes, altitude training is there, and it's worked for people over the years. And then, interestingly, more recently in the literature, people are talking around heat training, and how that can have an effect on hemoglobin levels. So when I say heat training, I don't just mean just going out and running in the heat, but going out and doing your session, and then straight after your session, sitting in a sauna or a very hot bath. So we're talking a hot bath around 36 degrees Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius, and sitting in that sauna for 20 to 30 minutes. Yeah, you had mentioned you had seen David Rush had spoken a little bit around perhaps utilizing some heat training.
Yes. Yeah. I think he uses it quite a lot in sitting in the saunas and just listening to him chat. I don't know the specific details of it and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that he does it something like 3 times a week and would sit in there after training. So to me, that just feels like you would become a hot, sweaty mess, though, if you'd been out for a run. I mean, would you do that after an easy run or a
So you easy. Sorry, Nicky. After an easy run, into the sauna straight away for 20 to 30 minutes. And again, I mean, maybe David Rush was doing it, and again, twofold, right? So you're getting 2 things here. You're getting the ability to sustain the heat, which is what he would have needed, doing the 100-miler. And then perhaps there are some, again, the literature is not absolutely conclusive yet, but there is some talk that it increases your hemoglobin levels, which is interesting. So, but yeah, you're in there for about 20 to 30 minutes, and it's very, very key that you just ensure that you hydrate properly. So take some water straight after your easy run, take some water into the sauna with you, and really focus on your hydration for the rest of the day. So interesting.
What I'm hearing there is I need to buy a wee sauna for my garden.
Excellent. I love it.
When I come back. And well, you see, coming from the UK and our winters, when you lovely folks have the heat in South Africa, we need that in our back garden, I think, which would be lovely, actually. Anyway,
that'd be amazing. I love it.
Benefit you. That would be brilliant.
I love a sauna as it is. As a child, very privileged. The holiday place we went to as a family would have like a spa they're available. So I used to go into the sauna with my dad, and so I always have loved a sauna. And now my gym membership that I'm here in South Africa has a sauna, so I'll often utilize that just because I find it quite relaxing. But
would I think long as half hour.
No, I can manage 8 to 12 minutes at the moment. That's about it.
It's a long time, isn't it? I mean, to sit there for that length of time is a long time to just kind of do nothing for as well.
Well, maybe that's also good for us because we are always sitting on our phones and our minds are always so busy, right? So that's actually why I quite enjoy it as well, is just to try and calm my mind down a little bit. But yeah, Nicky, I think that's a good excuse. I think I'm going to try to get you a sauna in I'm not sure how your husband would take that, but if we
he would love it. He would. He's not such a great fan of the running, but the sauna in the back garden would be a great thing.
Excellent.
And you could just take in your headphones and listen to the She Run Faster podcast. She Runs Strong podcast, and that'd be a great way to kill the time for 30 minutes, really, wouldn't it?
I love it. I absolutely love it. So yeah, and again, it's not something that's going to hurt you, right? So unless you're not hydrating properly, it's not going to, so if it gives you a hemoglobin benefits, excellent. And if it helps you with heat training, so when you come from the UK and come run a race in South Africa, you're managing with the heat. I think, why not give it a go? And it's relaxing. So
lots of options there, really, to help. Good stuff. Yeah. Excellent.
But I think in closing, Nicky, I mean, from my side, it would be just, look at your symptoms. If you are struggling with those symptoms that we mentioned, as Nicky mentioned as well, look at the severity or the intensity of those symptoms, and if they're compounded with other symptoms, and then go to your physician and question this and really, advocate for yourself and see if you can get a set of bloods done and check it out, because that's black and white. Once we get those in measurements done, and hopefully some of these treatments and all the rest will guide you and help you to feeling a little bit better if this is something that you struggle with. Nicky, parting shots from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you've explained, it's significant in running and running performance. So just knowing your levels is only going to be helpful. So get a wee test and then you're good to go.
Exactly. All right, everyone. Thank you, team. Hope you enjoyed and got value from this. I know that Nicky and I have enjoyed having these conversations with each other. So hopefully this benefits you in some sort of way. We really, really enjoyed this episode, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.